womenofgrace.com and click on the word Graceline. Then click on the box Receive Gracelines. That's womenofgrace.com.
Hello, everyone. I'm Johnnette Benkovic, inviting you to join me and women from around the country for a weekend of formation, fellowship, and fun at our annual Women of Grace retreat at the breathtaking Malvern Retreat House during the weekend of July 13th through 15th. Our theme is Embracing the Holy Duet, Mary and the Holy Spirit, and features fabulous speakers: Kathleen Beckman, Father Philip Scott, Jack Williams, Thomas K. Sullivan, and yours truly. The retreat includes Mass, adoration, confession, talks, reflection time, a healing service, and some special surprises. It is preceded by the Benedictine Leadership Enrichment Seminar entitled Women, God's Special Weapon Against Evil, with Kathleen Beckman, Susan Brinkmann, and Father Philip. We are thrilled to offer you our very first Young Women of Grace one-day retreat on Saturday, July 14th. See you there. Visit womenofgrace.com for details or call 800-558-5452.
Encouraging women in their gift of authentic femininity. Here's more Women of Grace with Johnnette Benkovic.
Welcome back, friends, from our break. We're delighted to be with you today, inviting you to give us a call here and join us as we continue forward in our broadcast today. Inviting you to call us soon because, you know, the sooner you call, the sooner you get on the air, and you get guaranteed of getting on the air. 833-288-EWTN is the number to use. Matt Gabensky is there waiting for you. 833-288-3986. We invite you to pick up the phone, give us a buzz, get on out there to social media too. We can receive your questions, comments, insights, inspirations, and words of encouragement right there at EWTN Radio's YouTube channel and Facebook page. Well, we have Sue Brinkmann with us. Many of you know that Sue is our Director of Communications at Women of Grace. She also brings us breaking news, and she does all of the research for us and answers your questions and gets great information out there through our New Age blog that's available for you too. To find that, all you really need to do is to scroll across that navigation bar. When you hit blogs, you're going to get a drop-down box, and you just select New Age, put it in there. Or right on the home page, you can use a search engine, and you can put in the topic that you would like more information about right there, and boom, 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 it's going to take you out there. And my guess is that whatever question you have, Sue has addressed it in some fashion, and in many cases, you're going to find numbers of responses that have to do with the question that you are asking. So without further ado, let's welcome Sue Brinkmann to the program today. How are you doing, Sue?
I am doing wonderful today, Johnnette. How about you? You're sounding chipper.
I am chipper. Well, thank you. Thank you. I had a really good night's sleep last night. That always helps, doesn't it?
Good.
And I slept through the whole. Yeah, I slept through the whole night. I really like that part.
That's a miracle for me.
I know, it's a miracle for me too. But you get to the point where you say, oh goodness, I really need this, and God comes along and it happens. So at any rate, all of that being said, I mean, I don't know how you get any rest with everything that's going on in the news today, and in addition to that, informing us about all of the crazy things that are going on in the culture as well. So let's talk a little bit. I mean, everybody is talking about Alfie Evans, and this has captured minds, it's captured hearts. It's become a world event, that's bringing people together on behalf of this little boy. So give us a little history, a little background. Let's talk a little bit about what's going on with regard to him.
Yeah, Alfie Evans is on everybody's lips. I mean, it's after Mass, in the supermarket, standing in line at the drugstore. That's all anybody is talking about is this little Alfie Evans, 23-month-old youngster in the UK. He was admitted to Alter Hey Children's Hospital in the UK in Liverpool in December 2016. He was diagnosed with a neurodegenerative disease that's associated, they think, with severe epilepsy, although he has never really been diagnosed. They don't know exactly what's wrong with him. But they claim that he is in a semi-vegetative state, and that word vegetative I despise. But that's the official thing that they're stating. John Paul II once said that he scoffed at that whole idea about vegetative state and said a man, even seriously disabled, is always a man and will never be a vegetable or an animal. So anyway, that's what they're saying about Alfie, that he's in that state. And during that time, he's been kept alive by artificial ventilation in a critical care unit in the hospital. Now, based on very extensive damage to the child's brain, the hospital recommended that they discontinue active treatment, which meant pull his life support.
Yes.
And what they said, let him die. Now, of course, the family fought for their little boy, and they've been in and out of court. Oh, this young couple, I mean, they're 21 years old. I mean, they're young people going through such a harrowing time in their life with their only little boy. And they've been fighting, but the court continues to rule against them. The parents continue to appeal, and they continue to get, again, rulings against them. Now, Rome did step in. The Holy Father did put out a plea for this child's life. He did open the way for little Alfie to be transported to Bambino Gesù Children's Hospital in Rome. They've agreed to take in the child. The Italian government granted Alfie citizenship, even applied to the foreign secretary for permission to intervene in the case. And again, the UK court ruled against it. And ultimately, the hospital won, and life support was withdrawn on Monday evening. But get this, Alfie is still breathing. It's now Friday. He's still breathing. And the mother just issued a statement last night saying, don't believe everything you read over social media that her son is suffering and doing very bad and all that kind of stuff. She said he's doing very well, and he's resting very comfortably. And when I look at any of the pictures that she's sending out, he looks like a little angel sleeping. He does not, he does not really even look that sick. He really doesn't. And I just, oh my goodness, I just keep saying, why won't they just release this child to Italy? They have air ambulances standing by, waiting to fly this child to Italy. And even though the Italian doctors have seen the brain scans and they are saying, okay, the best we can do is palliative care for this little boy, but at least they're willing to do that. Now, in the UK, this child is literally going to be left to die. It's like an edict has been issued, and he must die, is basically what they're saying. And so I looked into this. I thought, why won't the UK release this child? There's got to be a reason for this. Why are they so adamant? No, you can't. You're going to keep him here in this hospital. Maybe they're going to let him go home, but that hasn't been decided yet. But you cannot take him out of the country, and you cannot get more care from him. And I asked, well, why is that? Well, I finally found an answer, and wait till you hear this, Johnnette. Regent University family law professor Lynn Marie Cohn. The UK signed the Convention on the Rights of the Child, the UN treaty. And that treaty gives the state legal authority to make decisions about a child's welfare. So that means that the child's rights are protected by the state, not by his parents. And because Britain signed that in 1991, his parents can't intervene for his best interests. So that can't happen in the United States because although we signed that convention, we never ratified it here. And we have laws in this country that allow the parents to direct the upbringing of their children. And they're bound by law to do what's in the best interest of those children. But those rules, they don't exist in the UK or any of the 192 nations who signed and ratified the CRC. So that's really what's going on there. That, and in combination with the fact that we're talking universal health care now over in the UK, which again gives the state all kinds of power. And the hospital in Britain, they've been paying the cost of taking care of Alfie. And, they've just decided enough. Our resources are too limited. We can't keep, holding on to this child. So they're letting him go. That's exactly what they want to do. But now he is, as I said, Alfie is still alive. He is still breathing. He is getting oxygen. He does have oxygen support. Feeding, I'm not sure if they've worked that out yet. This poor little boy also needs to be fed, and the hospital, from what I understand, is quite reluctant to help him. But they are doing it. They are stepping up and doing what they can now, but only, it seems to me, as if after they were forced to do it. But this is the situation that's going on in England right now, and it really is a very difficult situation for everybody. The world, like as you said, is talking about this, is praying for this little boy. Different governments have gotten involved. The head of Poland has spoken up. We just have a medical ethics board, came up and they spoke about this is medical tyranny, they're calling it. So we have a lot going on as far as people really wanting to help little Alfie. Yeah. But at this point, it's in God's hands. It truly is in God's hands. Yeah. How we're going to be able to help him.
It's such a heart-wrenching situation here, and I think that what it shows is how an ideology can lay hold of the ethics that we apply in these kinds of situations. And in all of these cases, these ideologies that are really pro-death ideologies, population control ideologies, eugenicist ideologies seem to hold sway. And it's absolutely disturbing because it says something about where we have gone in Western civilization. The church built Western civilization. There's no question about it. The church built Western civilization, but it's been crumbling at its foundations for years now. And there's only one thing that happens when it begins to crumble, and that is that it falls. And what falls with it, and most typically, is those who are indigent, those who are most in need, and this prevails. And here we have this situation. I can remember, Sue, back in 1991 on this UN Convention of the Child, we did a program on this, and this is going back years and years. We did a program follow up to that in the Abundant Life a couple of years later, and what we have to understand about these conventions is that the word convention there is not used to represent a large group of people coming together, to discuss a topic for a period of time. These conventions are actually documents that countries sign that begin to implement certain kinds of what's the word that I want to use? Certain kinds of policies in the varieties of countries that sign them. And you're pointing out something here. So we have to be outrageously concerned about what every dot and tittle says in these UN conventions. And parents' rights were usurped. As you're mentioning here, we're talking specifically here about in terms of health care, but parental rights were usurped as well as in the disciplining of children. And while we don't see quite the same egregious application here in the United States in a situation like Alfie's, we do know that parents' capacities to discipline their children have been greatly limited in the United States. Now, is that a bad thing? No, because we all want to protect about abuse. But what the church tells us is that we never use an exceptional situation or case by which we create a law that applies to the masses. And there's a tendency to do that today. It's being done all of the time about any number of issues. And then we find ourselves in situations such as this that are appalling. And get the world to cry out against it, but people hold fast because of a law that never should have been implemented in the first place, because the law is there to protect the human person, to do the best for the human person, and the human person is a human person regardless of what state or condition they're in. And that was the point that John Paul II was making. So it's terribly, terribly frustrating and terribly, terribly upsetting. And as you say, the only thing that we can do is to pray for this young couple and to pray for this little boy. And sometimes it forces the imagination to wonder about things. And one of the things I'm wondering about as you say this, and of course there's no answer for this because this is all pure speculation and it's pure, just a gaze, an attempt to gaze through the omniscience of God himself. But sometimes I think God takes these situations and he focuses the eyes of the world upon them because he wants to correct something. And so in a certain sense, these dear individuals that suffer on behalf of the many become a type of victim soul. I'm thinking about Terry Schiavo here in this country, right, for example. And it shows our base inhumanity, It shows the horrid part of our nature, and it's interesting. There's an article that's out there that talks about the fact that in this case, Britain is choosing to kill this child, but then in other cases, and we see this here in this country and every country, I think, there's a bifurcation of our thinking process. In other cases, life is protected. You can't do this, you can't do that, but this you can do. because of this ratification of that that UN convention.
Oh, it is. It's so tragic. What I see here is this utilitarianism.
That's right.
You know, that is just creeping in everywhere anymore, and especially in euthanasia and the physician-assisted suicide debates, and that you see it coming up. You know, when somebody deems a person to be no longer useful, they're to be destroyed.
Yeah,
just get rid of them because they have no utilitarian value anymore.
That's right.
And I mean, this is just such a socialistic type of attitude to have. And I think, do we really want to go down this road? Mm-hmm. And I think it all started, honestly, with abortion. Well, I mean, who decides what's wanted and what's not wanted? And really, and then they just go out there and arbitrarily just destroy lives because we don't want them, because they're inconvenient, because they're this or that. It's not. This is where it's all coming from, I think. It all stems from this acceptance. Once you open the door to things like that, you just start to slide down the hill. And you don't slide down the hill in a noticeable way. It always is in increments, and it's in tiny little increments, because the evil one is behind us, and he's extremely clever, and he knows exactly how to do stuff like this so that you won't notice until it's too late. And then when it's too late, you'll say to yourself, you'll throw your hands up in the air, oh, what can I do now? I can't fight this now. Look how big this is. This is everywhere.
That's right.
This is exactly how it works.
Yeah. Well, I do want to remind all of you that we've got to know our faith, and we've got to know what our church says about this issue and many issues. And today at 3 p.m., you can hear Colin Donovan, who is Vice President of Theology for EWTN, on Open Line. So I want to make certain that you set your clock for that. You hear the music. We're going to go to a break. We're going to come back with Sue Brinkmann. We're interested in what you think about Alfie and anything else that you want to talk about right here on Women of Grace Live today, 833-288 EWTN. That's 833-288 EWTN. We're going to be right back. Stay with us.
Teresa Tomeo.
It's our goal to help each and every listener take this beautiful faith of ours out into the public square with great ideas on making a difference through engaging the culture.
The leading Catholic voices are on EWTN Radio.
St. John the Baptist wasn't killed because he refused to bow to some pagan god. Herod, who had John beheaded, didn't care that much about religion. St. John ultimately lost his head because he wouldn't keep quiet. And more specifically, he wouldn't stop challenging Herod and his wife to leave their sins of the flesh. When we challenge people directly and clearly about sin, it can make them angry. When we simply call a sin what it is, that can make people angry too. But sometimes, that's exactly what God is calling us to do, and it's what love demands of us. I'm not saying we're supposed to challenge people all the time when we see them in sin or doing something immoral. Sometimes silence is wise. Sometimes we need to build up a friendship before we can earn the right to be heard. But when those times come where God is calling us to speak with clarity, we can either play it safe and keep silent or be saints. We don't get to be both. St. John the Baptist, pray for us. This is Chris Stefanik from RealLifeCatholic.com on EWTN Radio.
CNA is the only fast, reliable, and free Catholic news source that brings blogs, stories, and opinions to your fingertips. The latest Catholic news is at CatholicNewsAgency.com, an online service from EWTN News.
In Ireland right now, we are facing a serious crisis. The agents of the culture of death are attempting to have abortion legalized in our country. We cannot allow this to happen. In these moments, we are asking the EWTN family to join with us in prayer.
To join in prayer and to find out how you can help the pro-life movement in Ireland, go to EWTN in Ireland at ewtn.ie.
Our very popular monthly Unscripted is next.
Ask us anything, suggest future topics, revisit past shows, whatever you wish to talk about.
We're here to listen on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio.
Now back to Women of Grace.
Transforming the world one woman at a time. Let's return to Women of Grace with Johnnette Benkovic.
Welcome back, friends. We're here with Sue Brinkmann today. She is our Director of Communications at Women of Grace, and additionally, she brings us breaking news, and she is the researcher, manager, and answerer of the questions that come into us via our New Age blog. We're talking about the case of Alfie Evans right now. We're interested in your thoughts on this. Do pick up the phone. Give us a call. Matt Gavensky is there for you. 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-EWTN. We invite you to pick up the phone and dial that number and be with us live here on Women of Grace Live. We're also available to you out there on social media. EWTN Radio's YouTube channel and Facebook page is the way that you can join us there. You can see me. I'm waving to you. And in addition to that, you can also leave your questions, comments, insights, inspirations, words of encouragement there. And Jeff Burson will get them up on the board so we can address those. One of the reasons why we have breaking news is so that we can keep you informed. So we certainly do invite you to get out there to our website, womenofgrace.com. You can read the headlines of the day given to us by Sue, always with a mind towards the heart of the church. It's a great way to consume information, a great way for you to be informed and stay informed. Also on that site, we've got all kinds of remarkable things. We've got our listing of events, where we're going to be and what we're going to be doing. You heard a spot earlier, I believe, about our retreat that's coming up in Melbourne, right outside of Philadelphia in July. All of the details for that are there. Sue's going to be there presenting. We've got lots of great presenters that are going to be there. Benedicta Leadership Enrichment Seminar precedes the retreat. Kathleen Beckman is going to be presenting, and she's going to be helping us to understand how it is that we as women can be used by God in this our day and time to reverse the tactics, to foil the strategies of the evil one against all of those things that are most important to the heart and mind of God. So we're going to find out about those tactics of the evil one, the strategies, and how it is that we combat them. Very fascinating series of topics and discussions are going to be unfolded throughout that enrichment seminar. Sue's going to be presenting there as well. So I really want to encourage you to get out there. There's a great article out here. I just want to reference this, Sue. I think it's a really good one. It's out there on the website of First Things. First Things is a publication that I think it's still in the print medium as well as in the internet medium. But it talks about what Catholic teaching says to us about these situations. And I think that this is outrageously important for us to understand, because we hear such confusing things. And we are likely to be, I think, formed and shaped by the cultural perspective as opposed to the Catholic perspective. And as Catholics, we want to be shaped and formed by Holy Mother Church. I think that we're Catholics first. We're Catholics. We're children of God first. Baptism makes us so. So that's the first. That's the first place we go for information, folks. I'm just telling you, You can listen to everything the doctors tell you, but you got to take that then into, church teaching. Catechism of the Catholic Church can help you. But our tradition is just robust, if you will, with social doctrine on any numbers of these issues. But this is what it says. And the writer of this particular piece here, Sue, is Charles Camosi. I might be pronouncing the name wrong. Maybe you know it better than I. But the headline is Alfie Evans and Our Moral Crossroads. And he talks about, there do come points of decision that have to be made in certain cases and situations. But what he says is this. He says, to be clear, the distinctions between life-sustaining treatment that is morally required and that which may be foregone, pioneered by the Catholic moral theology in the late Middle Ages and early modern period, are essential in these cases. And he goes on and he says, the principle of never aiming at the death of an innocent person, whether by action or omission, must remain absolutely exceptionless. He says this is what the dignity of the person requires, especially if one wishes to protect vulnerable populations who are at risk of being marginalized by those who find them inconvenient. To your point, the baby in the womb. And given the checkered history of Western medicine, when it comes to the value of the disabled, we must take care to be certain that this principle is enforced in the clinic. And he goes on and he compares the case of Alfie Evans to Charlie Gard. And we all remember that case. That gained, worldwide attention too, and the Vatican intervened then as well, But he goes on and he points out the differences between the Charlie Gard case and Alfie's case. And he goes on and he talks about the biases that exist within medicine today, and how the value of the lives of disabled patients are rated. And I think it's so important for us to understand this. And he talks about the fact that food and water are never to be withdrawn, except, when a person is in the dying process, the actual dying process, not because we're forcing it, but because it's happening. And then the person can be poorly affected by trying to take food or water in, because the body processes are shutting down, and it can actually cause them to aspirate and die on the spot. So that's very, very different. And he talks about how the language is used to try to encourage family members to choose these other means. And we can get into some really, really serious issues here, as a byproduct of our discussion today, including brain death and all of these other things, where there's a value that's placed on the organs that sometimes takes precedent over giving the patient an opportunity to be revived and other things. So we have to be so very careful when it comes to this area. So, just some thoughts that are brewing in my mind as we went to our break there.
Absolutely. The family, according to Catholic end-of-life issues, the family can agree to turn off the life support if they choose to, or if they do not choose. They can make that choice at this point.
Yeah.
But whatever the situation, pain relief, nutrition, hydration must be maintained until such time that patient can no longer process them. As you said, they have to be in that active stage of dying. And
That's
Alfie isn't. And the other thing that is another sticking point is that Alfie's condition has never really been diagnosed.
See, that's the difference between him and Charlie Gard, too. That was one of the points that was made in that other article.
Yeah,
right.
Charlie Gard had a definitive diagnosis. They were looking at some different experimental treatments for him, but none of them they decided were going to work for him. But in the case for Alfie, they are thinking about trying some experimental things in Italy if they can get the child there. But they don't really know what it is that he has.
Right.
So I think that always leaves that question in your mind, well, might this turn around in some way?
Well, we've heard cases where people have come out of comas, 20 years after they were in a coma. I mean, this is the thing. There is no such thing as a vegetative state because the soul never dies, right? So,
right.
Excuse me, hello. I mean, we get that. The body does expire, but it can't and this is a theological question and it's also an ethical question. Nobody knows what goes on, that cannot be perceived by tests and medical science and all of these other things. Nobody knows what goes on in the interior life of that person. Nobody knows what God is affecting. And let's face it, I want to get to the phone lines because they're lighting up and we've got some things coming in through social media as well. But I want to say this, Sue. You are a woman of deep prayer. You are a woman who has been formed by Theresian spirituality and the spirituality of St. John of the Cross, right? Now, when we pray, we don't always know what God's doing in the soul, and cognitively, we don't understand it, but yet we see the effects of it. We see the benefit of it. We know that there's an activity that's taken place within our heart that has actually changed us and transformed us. And we see that through the facility to practice virtue, to withstand the temptation of sin. We see it, there's an effect that we see. And I'm only citing that because what I'm saying is the fact that something isn't necessarily being cognitively processed doesn't say that there's nothing going on. That's the point that I wanted to make. And prayer, I think, is a good example of that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Life is sacred. Like you said, they don't really know what's going on. And even the study of the comatose cases and the different levels of coma, there's still a lot of research left to be done on that to determine what exactly is going on inside of that person. But like you said, life is sacred. This is something that is God-given. Our soul never dies. we don't know what's going on inside of that person on a spiritual level.
Right.
Mentally, even, we don't know.
Right. We don't know.
So we just don't know. And I think that if there's a chance, you should go for it because, as I said, life is sacred.
That's exactly
life is sacred, and it's all about a love for that life and the dignity of the person. That's really what we live for here in our church. Everything that our church teaches on any of these subjects always boils down to one thing, love.
Well, Dave out there on YouTube says, I've been praying for baby Alfie, but I was wondering, what are we to pray for specifically? He most certainly is in God's hands. And that's a great question. So what would you recommend? I mean, what do we pray for? I mean, there's all kinds of things that we can pray for, right?
Absolutely. I would. The top two that I would pray for and that I have been praying for is, number one, that God's will might be done with that child.
That's right.
Whatever God wills for that child is exactly what should happen with that child. The second thing is that I pray for is that God will heal people of the mentality that is going on behind the scenes with it, that's fueling what's happening with Alfie, that certain lives are not worth being kept alive.
That's right.
I pray for that daily. Please eradicate, Lord, that way of thinking. Heal us of whatever is causing us to think that way as a society, as a culture now, that a person has to have some sort of utilitarian value in order to be allowed to stay alive. I mean, that's what's got to be handled, I think. Those are the two things that I pray for primarily.
Yeah, we're going to get to those phone lines. I just want to say that in this very same article, Kamosi says the church offers guidance on the meaning of extraordinary and ordinary care in the treatment of the critically ill and people, and he uses the term we don't like, in persistent vegetative states. But the teaching is often unable to overcome ideologically driven controversy and confusion in such cases. He says that is particularly true in the United States, where this Father Wilde says end-of-life controversies have been driven. And see, here we go. This is again to your point, where end-of-life controversies have been driven by abortion politics, sometimes in contravention to the church's actual teaching about the care of patients nearing death or in these states. He says the church does not teach that every possible recourse must be taken to preserve life. The social dialogue on end-of-life is too often driven by ideologues. Another priest, Father Paris, complains they are not interested in the tradition, but their ideology. And that often drives them into positions that are contrary to the traditions of a moral bioethic. And so, these cases ought to have us focus more on these issues and get us really to the point where we are willing to move forward in trying to affect some kind of a change. I want to get to Jennifer. Jennifer is with us from San Antonio, Texas today. You can be with us too, friends. 833-288-EWTN. That's 833-288-3986. She is listening to us via Guadalupe Radio. Good morning, Jennifer. How are you?
Hello. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just great. Hi.
Okay, great. What I was sharing with the screener was with my grandmother when she had bladder cancer. I would never dream of a million years of doing anything of the sort of how they're saying of the killing of withdrawing food or water or anything of that sort. And it just appalled me to hear of what was being said of this poor little girl or little boy, Alfie.
Yes.
I was like, and my son and I were listening, and we're like, oh my gosh, I was saying, that's horrible. And my little 4-year-old son goes, that is horrible. And he's 4 years old.
Right, exactly.
And so that's what he called me, said, you know what, I think I'm going to call. And I said, it's one thing if it's medicine, that they can't take medicine. But it's one thing that for food and water, you never deny anybody food or water. And I know when he gets old enough to understand, you're not going to deny me food or water, and I'm certainly not ever going to deny you food or water.
Right.
And even from when he grows up and has kids of his own, to teach them the same thing, not to deny him food or water, it's got to be passed on. And that's what I think is a problem with today's society is they're not being taught properly. And that's when you end up with society as you have now, because they're being corrupted with these morals. And I think that's what's being handed on nowadays is these corrupted morals. And then you have society and you have these issues that are going on right now, and look what's going on overseas, right? With
yes. Well, Jennifer, yeah, I just want to say you're a very good mom. You know, you understand, and you want to raise your child in the way in which he should go, and you want to raise him within the heart of the church, and I admire that very much about you. And in this situation, Sue, as we know, Alfie is receiving oxygen now, and he's receiving some water. But it's put forward in this article that I was reading there that they don't. There are those that are saying that he's not receiving enough oxygen, he's not receiving enough water, and that the whole element of nutrition is not there. So you know this is the situation, which we know will bring about a death. And it just, as Jennifer points out, even a 4-year-old kind of gets the message on this one. And it reminds me of the fact that we've got to be out there as missionaries in the world today. We've got to be out there promoting the truth, heralding it, using these airwaves day in and day out, using our mouths, you know, using everything that we can to proclaim the truth. And one way in which we can do that is by helping people become informed. So I want to encourage you, my dear friends, if you've never really considered becoming a media missionary for EWTN, getting out there and helping to promote the good work of the network in your parish, there's lots of ways in which you can do that. And I want to encourage you to consider it. Maybe God's calling you to that. I mean, who knows, Jennifer? Maybe God's calling you to that specifically, sweetheart. You never can tell. But the EWTN media missionaries take EWTN to their parishes and their community through any numbers of means, through print and electronic media that's provided by EWTN. And you can get more information about it by going to EWTNmissionaries.com. That's EWTNmissionaries.com. So, Jennifer, you pray about that, honey. I'm not saying that God's calling you to it, but he very well could be. And I'll bet you he's calling several people that are listening today. Let's get to Sandra. She's calling us from Louisiana this morning. Good morning, Sandra. How are you?
Hi. Well, I'm alive.
Good.
My question was more so about what you were talking about last night.
Okay.
About the whole over-sexualization of our society, so that it all boils down to what your choice and a desire sexually is for your own body, regardless of whether you want the child growing within you to live or you want to be how God made you as a female or a male. It all comes down to the selfish desire of what do I want to feel like. It's all emotionally based. Well, instead of asking about that arena, which led to my near death a year and a half ago, it was a political thing. I'm very feminine, you're very masculine, and they assaulted me and told me why, because I was feminine and they didn't want everything I represented. They were very masculinized. In any event, I'd rather talk about your topic right now. My mother and father, and now my sister, older sister, I'm 66, is being literally killed, was killed, and is being killed by withdrawing nourishment. And they're in a nursing home. They were in a nursing home. She is in a nursing home now. And when I went in and saw how she had deteriorated so quickly for lack of nourishment, the meal they were giving her was a fried corn dog and like some fried tater tots or something. And you can't get better and build muscle on that kind of a nourishment. And that is her problem with Parkinson's. And my mother and father fell prey to just age-related, they fail like she fell. Mm-hmm. And when you don't nourish the body to come back and rebuild tissue, it kills you.
Yeah.
You die. And they may call it natural causes, but it's withdrawing nourishment to rebuild your body because you're old or feeble or infirm. And I just wondered if y'all had noticed that trend. If you're no longer useful, like you said, let's just give you anything to eat. It's easy, and it may not be nourishing, but it's what we have, and it tastes good. That's good enough. And it's really killing the person for lack of nourishing their body.
Sue?
Oh, yeah. That's been going on for a while now. I hate to say it, at least a decade, if not longer, going on in hospitals and hospices. What happened is they took food and water and basic nutrition, and instead of continuing to list that as basic care, they now began to list that as treatments. So that if you say, or to sign an advance directive of some kind that says at a certain point I want all treatment to stop, they can technically stop your food and water too and starve you to death at that point.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what is being done behind the scenes and why this is becoming so widespread. And people need to look at their advance directives and make sure that they specify that they want food and water if they believe that they will want that. Because I'm telling you, this is what happened. This is, and I might even say almost 20 years ago now, especially when we got into managed care. Once we got into managed care, I kind of like to call that managed death because that's really what ended up happening. They just kind of rewrote this stuff behind the scenes so that you could now be denied, legally be denied food and water, which should be basic care, which we believe as Catholics is basic care. And it should never be withdrawn until you get to that point when, as we said earlier, the body can no longer process those things and you're in the active stage of dying. But this is what's happening behind the scenes. And so, yeah, there's a lot of violence going on out there that we don't really hear about, and except if we go through it in our families, the way you're going through it, and you're finding out, wow, I never knew that this was going on out there. But yes, it is.
Yeah, and some of this has to do, too, with the rating, the way in which they rate these patients. And that was one of the, they can deny you typical levels of nutrition that are necessary for the sustaining of life. And I just, to your point, I wanted just to ask you this question, Sandra. I mean, are you permitted to bring food into this facility where she is? No. Okay. Well, that's very sad. So, we have to be we're right down to the minute here. We have to be very, very careful, very, very careful about the way in which we permit ourselves to shape our worldview on these issues, our perspective, our ethic, and the way in which we take care of those whom we love. Got to just shoot off here. It's been great being with you, Sue. Been great being with all of you. Wish we could have gotten to you, John. We're going to be back with you again. Stay with us, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye now.